Welcome to Self-Directed. We are your hosts, Cecilia and Jesper Conrad, and today's guest is Black Dad.
So we talk to people who inspire us and people we want to ask more questions, people who did something strange, like, for example, unschool their kids, or who, somehow hit a nerve within us. And today we have Jae with us, and it's actually kind of your guest.
Yes, it's because on Instagram I saw some of your videos, and what I like is another unschooling dad is always fantastic. And for people out there listening, then your Instagram and YouTube account is called A Black Dad's Journey. And what I found really interesting and wanted to hear more about is your journey from a teacher to becoming a homeschool dad. I know you have made a video about it, but can you tell us what happened?
Yeah, so as I start my videos, I say I'm Jae Will, aka Black Dad, and I started teaching. I've always wanted to be a teacher, even as a kid. I remember my mom would say, like, you have a teacher's spirit or coach's spirit. Actually, I coach as well, basketball, and I remember I remember sitting in a classroom in the back of the classroom and seeing the teacher in the front, like teaching. And I was always thinking, why are they doing it like that? Like, if they just did it like this, they would get so much more, interest from the kids, and people would be so much more engaged. The kids would be so much more engaged. And I always said, everything that I do, I want to do it the way that I would have wanted to receive teaching. So when I went into the classroom, I wanted to be the teacher that I feel like I never had, or a combination of my favorite teachers, whether they would be my favorite teachers that I actually had in person in real life, or people that I've seen on television, like, Robin Williams, in the Dead Poets Society or something like that. And so I brought all these aspects together to just try to create this perfect little person, this perfect little representative of education and learning and love and respect and joy, because that to me was what learning was about. And it worked, and I loved it. Man, I loved it so much. Like, even talking about this now, I get these butterflies, because that's how I felt every day going to school. Like, it was just so much joy coming to school and seeing those faces. And initially, so when you look at me, I'm tall. I'm about 6'4", almost 6'5", like 225 pounds. Bald guy with a beard, right? And I taught kids that, sixth, seventh, eighth grade. So you're looking at anywhere between 12, 13, 14, 15. And I have a very naturally, I guess you could say, intimidating presence about me. And so I just stand up in front of the classroom with my bald head, beard, and to see the moment when they see that inside here is just so much love and care for them, and when they realize, oh, this guy is on my side, it's just that building that connection is just so beautiful. And I love that. I love that every single year. I love developing and cultivating those connections with the kids. And with that, you realize, you guys have been married for a while. I've been married for 12 years. And, the most important things with, a marriage, a commitment, a partnership is trust and honesty, right? So you build these connections with these kids, and you want to be truthful with them, and so I remember, several times students have asked, "Oh, Mr. Williams, you'll tell us the truth. Is this really important? Do we need to know about, about this?" And I was like, to be, successful and rich and happy, or whatever your goals are. And I remember sitting there, I was like, I want to say, yeah, of course, but really, no, it's not. Because I was a history teacher. So, we're talking about, who the fourth president was. Like most people don't know who the fourth American president was. I know, but it doesn't matter,
You can live life without knowing.
exactly. You could live life without knowing about the fourth president, right? And that's the thing that I remember one day kind of saying, no, you really don't need to know this. It's not about knowing as many facts as possible. To me, it was about at that point. I've evolved since then, but what I told them at that point was, it's not about knowing the facts, these old facts, but what it is to know the ability to learn these facts so you can get a better job and get a better career. And even like me saying that now, like I just feel so short-sighted. It's like, wow, we're preparing these kids in childhood instead of enjoying childhood, enjoying learning, enjoying the things that they're passionate about. Like even me coming from a good place, I was telling them, oh yes, to do this thing, just to enter this rat race and to get this good job and to buy this house and to make this money, because at the end of that road, you're going to be happy. And it's not, like now this Black Dad journey, it started with me just wanting to be a better father and be a better teacher, but it's evolved into so much other stuff, and I just realized that happiness doesn't come from the things that you gain. It comes from a very special, intimate place that you have to at some point get in touch with. And most of us in the world today don't get that opportunity to really tap into that thing. And you feel like something's missing. And I feel like it starts off with the way we educate our kids.
It starts off maybe with, so I think you hit a nerve that is strong, at least to me, this living for the future. We teach the children even from the age of 5 or 6 years old, when we put them down on the chair in the school. We teach them that what they do today, it's more important that they do this so that in 10 years from now, they will be in a better place, having more options or a better job or whatever. So most of the effort you put into your daily life should be in order to maybe gain a little more happiness 10 years down the road. And this living outside of the here and now, I think that is one of the very big problems. Yet there is a balance to find, obviously. You can't just burn all your money today. So I was just wondering, have you been putting any thought into this balance of how do we live in the moment and live for the moment, yet, we know the future does exist.
Yeah, it's funny. Have I put any thought into it? That's
you want to talk about it? Obviously, you have. Sorry.
That
was almost offending.
That's what you think about. That's what I think about every day. So it's something you mentioned, early in your intro with your journey and literal journey, traveling the world. And you realize in traveling the world that the connections that you make with people, those are the things that are the most impactful. Those are the things that really touch you. And everyone has those things. I feel like the connections are important for everyone. I feel like we're as a species, as humans, we are very communal. That's why we are the surviving, species of Homo sapiens, right? And something that, so to answer your question, because I think about it every day. I think about it a lot. And what I really want to do is, my goal is to figure out, okay, all right, as I'm going through this and I'm realizing, okay, money, house, and having the 2 kids and the dog, the picket fence, like that's not the most important thing, right? So what is the most important thing, right? And for me, it was living a joyful life is consistently as possible. Okay, so how do you get that joy? And all my videos, I always try to talk from my perspective and my experience. So how do I reach that joy? And that joy is I feel like all of us have a purpose and a reason for why we're here. And to me, that joy comes in fulfilling my purpose. When I was supposed to be in front of that classroom for all those years, teaching those students. I was living my purpose in that moment, right? I was supposed to go through this path where this last year I've been, the homeschool or unschool facilitator and enjoying this time with my kids and things like that. This is my purpose, right? And those moments every day that I'm living in that purpose, that brings me that joy. And as long as I'm continually seeking, and I'm a very spiritual person, not the most religious, but I'm a very spiritual person. And to me, I feel that if I continue seeking what my purpose is, and seeking that joy from wherever it comes, whether it's from the universe, whether it's from God or Allah, whoever you feel or whatever you feel that is. But when you continue in that path, that joy is there. And when you continue seeking truth, that joy is there. That happiness is there. And so what I do is every day, and I do not know all the answers. I'm looking forward to this conversation to ask you questions as well,
Yeah,
right?
feel free.
Yeah, but I feel that for me, every day I'm striving to become the best version of myself, right? One of the things in my journey is that I didn't have a father. So my examples of fatherhood were from outside sources. It never was intimate. So there's only but so much you can get with that. And so I'm striving every day to become a better father, a better husband, because that's another thing. Didn't you have that example? Striving every day to see that balance of, okay, or that flow of, all right, am I working in my purpose? Am I working toward my passions and my interests? But am I also taking care of my responsibilities of being a father and a husband? Because these are things that I didn't necessarily have the best examples of. And I literally pray every day, that I do that I am that support for my wife, that I am that leader, that guide, that support for my children, and trying to figure out, whether it be reading books, watching YouTubes, reading blogs, trying to figure out, okay, how can I best balance this whole thing to live this purposeful life? Because I feel like I am on this planet, I am on this earth to leave a positive legacy and influence for my children, right? If I'm doing this for these my students, who I loved, by the way, I call them my kids, my students that I taught, I loved. If I was doing this and made this much sacrifice and commitment to them, like, I obviously need to do this for my own children in my own home. So yes, I strive for that every day, to figure out what that balance is. And if I've done a few different interviews, and sometimes I listen to some of the things that I've done in the past, and I'm like, oh man, I see my growth now. Like I'm different, And
But it's
and
kind of better than not seeing it.
yeah, yeah, it helps.
Yeah.
To me, it helps with this whole process, and even some of my videos that I've done in the beginning, you could tell where my focus was, and now it's, I'm not saying it's changed, it's just, it's evolved and it's growing, and I can't wait till I'm 10 years in the game, like you all, so it's a beautiful thing.
But I have some thoughts.
Okay.
No, it's because I think one of the reasons I think it's interesting, is it now 1 or 2 years ago you quit teaching? How far away is it? One
year.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
But in my journey as this unschooled dad, as I said, we have been down this road for 10 years. Then it's a big we, where the most part of it is on my wife, because I was out there being the breadwinner. And I remember experiencing, when we started to homeschool that it felt like summer holidays all the time. I didn't need to take kids to school or anything, or to a kindergarten, and they were not burned out when they came home. But I was still, and on many levels, not present father, or I could have been more present. I could have loved to be there even more. And this, after 10 years, this spring, we took a big step, because we looked on our economic and changed our life. And I had this very fancy job being an interim CEO for an NGO. And it just took all my focus away from being with my family. So I took the step and said no to the job. And it has both been a really big pleasure, but man, it has also been a difficult inner journey, because all this identity I've built up about having on these different hats, now I'm just like, our money, we are in a lucky monetary situation. So part of me feel I'm not needed. And that was really weird. And then to you taking the responsibility as the stay-at-home dad, I don't meet a lot of dads who are not even in unschooling and world schooling and homeschooling communities, who are the dad who stays home. So my question is, well, my story is, it has been difficult for me, but I feel much better now after 9 months.
In a way, you're actually further down the road than my husband, because he was working all these years.
Yeah, I was working all the time.
With the children, handling this. Whole, can I say something?
Yeah.
Handling this, this, you make up your own reality. No one's telling me what to do. No one's telling me that I'm good enough. No one's paying me money. No one will give me a raise. No one will give me sit me down and give me a gold star, or tell me I could do this better, or I did that very well, because what I do is live my life with the children, and I have to make sure that what I do is what I want to do and what will make me happy at the end of the day. Whereas my husband kindly made all the money for us, so he had to go somewhere and do what was needed at the job, and could come back with some money that was like a very physical
evidence of me having value.
Proof that what he did added value. Whereas, when he came home, you can hardly see what I've done, because that was just, how it is. It's conversations, it's watching movies together, it's going for a walk, it's all the basic stuff like cleaning, organizing, making 100,000 meals and cleaning up after them. No one can see that at the end of the day. And I think this, in that way, you're a bit further down, because my husband quit the job in January 1st.
So my question is, what reflection did you do of taking the career and putting it on the shelf? And how have part of your travel been there? Finding value now in your there is no paycheck, but there is value.
Yeah, it's been difficult, and to be frank, it's still something I'm working through, because we put validation on the things that we do, a lot of validation on the things we do, and when you aren't getting that pat on the back from your colleagues or your supervisor, or even the people you're serving in the workforce, you don't always get it. And you hear the jokes with moms, like mom, being a mom is it's like a thankless job, that's why, there's so much emphasis on Mother's Days and things like that, because every single day mom is there, and they don't always get that thank you. They don't always get that pat on the back. They don't get that raise. There's never a raise, So as you transition into this, being this, I guess, homemaker, right? Which I've never done before. Obviously, it's different, because so the challenge that I have with it is I'm very, very, very passionate with everything I do. So, and sometimes I take it too far, and so in the beginning, I would I'm just being honest, I would find other things to be passionate about than what I technically should be passionate about, right? So because I needed the validation to look the way I wanted it to look instead of being what it needs to be. And I give examples of that. Even my YouTube channel, like I would spend days just locked in my room working on my YouTube, right?
Yeah.
Instead of spending that time with my kids, right? Instead of spending that time thinking of and creating different adventures and things for them, right? And then I shifted, and then I would I wouldn't say I put too much into them, but then it'll be all with them, right? So that's when you ask your original question, oh, how do you find this balance? It's like, man, this is, man, I've been on this like thing trying to find balance for the last 12 plus months. But and it's and you know, and then you always asking these questions of why, right? I think that's the number one unschooling thing, is asking those why questions. Okay, so why did I put myself so much in this YouTube channel? Why did I do all these field trips and things like that with the kids and stuff? And where I was like, because it got to the point where they didn't even want to do it, but it looks good to do. You know what I mean? It's like, oh, so Tuesday we're doing this, and Wednesday we're doing this, and Thursday we're doing this, and it's like, and everybody's like, oh, so what are you doing? Oh, so we went to this museum, and we toured this place, and we did this.
How it is.
Yeah, right. And you're doing all this stuff for like, okay, and then it's like, all right, is it really for them? Is this what they really want to do? Am I really following their interests and their passions? Or I'm doing this because it looks good for a dad to say, oh yeah, I'm a stay-at-home dad, and I make YouTube videos, and you see all these amazing things my kids are doing every single week, right? So there's a struggle there, and so I take a step back and realize, okay, all right, let's focus on what's most important. And those connections, going back to what you're saying, those connections, building that relationship with them, with me, helping guide them in their relationship with themselves, understanding that all of their choices have consequences. And when I say consequences, I'm not just talking about bad things, I'm talking about good things as well, right? So you know, and these are things we kind of focus on all the time, and we talk about, and we have these conversations, and the most amazing thing in this process is that my wife, she's the reverse role. So she's like you, Jasper, where she's the main breadwinner, and so she comes home, and she's been so supportive in this journey that I've had with the kids. And I know I don't do it the typical homeschool or unschooling mom way, right? I'm a dad, so I'm going to do it different, right? And I'm a little more hands off, but distant. But we still have these conversations and connections, and it's not me micromanaging their learning. I don't like that approach. Like I said, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this the way that it feels the best for me at this time. And I know that's even going to grow and evolve as we do it. But she's been so supportive. And, you know, we have these moments where, so me and her, we like to go on these walks, and we have these moments where we go on these walks and we have these conversations, and we see, it's like, man, our kids are so amazing. Like we just went, we had a little Conrad moment, right? So we went to Alaska recently, and man, it was so awesome. It was so amazing going to Alaska. I've never been before. We took a helicopter ride to a glacier. It was just so beautiful.
Wow.
It was fantastic. If you haven't done Alaska yet, that's someplace you definitely
we haven't done Las Americas. We haven't crossed the Atlantic Ocean yet.
Oh my goodness, you got to make it over to our side.
Coming. There was a COVID problem at some point that stopped us, but we are coming.
And so we went on this trip, and it was so amazing, and to see our kids have so much joy, and it was so many times that people will come over and say, oh man, your kids are so respectful, your kids are such good kids, and blah 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 blah. And I was like, oh, thank you. And this one lady said this, she stopped us literally in the middle of dinner, came over and said, your kids are so respectful. And no, she said, your kids are so well behaved. And I said, you know why? And she says, why? And I said, respect. She's like, yeah, my kids respect me too. And then she walked away, and I was like, no, she doesn't get it.
No, I respect them.
Because I respect them, right? And
Yeah,
it's interesting just how people think with those kind of things. But yeah, I'm going on a tangent. I'm sorry.
No, it's
cool.
wonderful. It's
It
wonderful.
made me think about all these day trips to museums where we've just experienced 100,000 times that you go to a museum and our children are actually interested in being there. So they tap the
Custodian.
Yeah,
I don't know, like person working there, they tap them on the shoulder and they're like, so what's that on that paint? I don't get that. Or what's that handle there? What can you explain, please? And then this custodian starts talking, and then they ask more questions. Sometimes they can stand for like 45 minutes talking to someone working in the museum, and afterwards they come like to me or my husband, what's with your children? These are really weird children. They're really interested and they really get it. And they really want to be here. This is a new one. And very often you enter with children and they get all scared. You see the custodian's eyes go like this and they're like monitoring, will they ruin the paintings or the whatever it is? And then it's the reverse, that they are there because they like being there. And I just think this is a very it's a very common thing that we have tried many times, just like you say, sitting at a dinner table, maybe at a restaurant, something, and they get noticed, the children, for behaving differently. And I don't even like the word behave, because it's like the Danish translation is really bad, because it contains the word acting, like something you do to make people believe you are handling your life in a special way. And behave is kind of, now you behave yourself. And it's actually it's their presence, it's their natural presence in life. They're not talking to the custodian to impress anyone. They are talking to him because they want to know what he knows. And in the restaurant, when they sit and they eat nicely, and then no smartphones on the table, and we're having a good conversation, laughing, and all these things, they're not doing that because I taught them to handle life like that, to behave. They're doing it because it's nice to have a nice dinner together. Like you say, respect. It's just because they enjoy the situation. And I think that's very different. And maybe that lady who says, yeah, my kids respect me too, they can sometimes be hard to cross the barrier and explain what's actually going on.
There's a fun thing sitting with a teacher, Jae, that when you talked about your kids out and being together with them, and Cecilia talked about the field trips. I've been wondering about these field trips, when we meet school classes on a museum, often we're like, oh no, could we go there a day where there isn't school classes? And I've been wondering, why are they running around and screaming like that? Because it's really weird to me. They are in a place where they could enjoy it. And what I reached was that they live a very, very controlled life. They don't decide when they go up in the morning. They don't decide when their brain is ready to learn. And then their whole life is scheduled. And then if they have a field trip, it's like freedom maybe for half a day. And maybe I would just also run around and screaming. So I'm trying to understand, why do they end up in that place? And I think it's because of the control. A question to you as a teacher and passion and motivation is, when I talk with people about that first meets unschooling, I'm trying to explain to them, well, we actually don't school. We don't even unschool. We are just living our life. But when you look at school, sometimes when you look at it, it's a weird construct that you are going there as a child, and now you need to be passionate about a subject, for example, history, and you only need to be for 45 minutes or maybe 1.5 hours, and then you needed to be interested in something else. And that is very difficult for the brain to switch like that. So, and just...
So what's the question?
The question is just, how has it been to be on the other side and trying to catch these children, being there in the environment, giving it to them, and then now living outside that box of how education is and looking at it and seeing your former self. It must be a wild transition.
It is. So like I talked about in the beginning, how I was so passionate and love teaching, right? But I always said I didn't like school. I never liked school. Even as a student, I didn't like school. And so when I was a teacher, and Jasper, the same things you just described. So we would have, before the school year would start, we would have teacher development days, right? Where you have like some person doing a seminar, basically telling you how you can be a better educator, better teacher. And I remember a couple times there was representatives that said basically exactly what you described. It's the brain is very difficult to be focusing in on one task and be interested and motivated for one task for longer than for a certain amount of time, and then the shift and switch to go to a completely different task, that where you have to really concentrate and focus in on it, right? It takes time for even adults. So children, it's even worse. And I remember, so they're saying this, I was like, but we do this every day, like for 180 days. So why are we expecting, it's almost like we're setting them up for failure. So there was a time in my last couple years teaching when I was just so confused. And I remember going to my principal about it. And I said, you heard what he just said. So why don't let's do something different? Because I was at a charter school, which in charter schools, there is a lot more flexibility with how you can do your curriculum, even your school days and stuff like that. And so I said, let's do something different, And I remember his response was, he said, those things are pie in the sky. As long as colleges are requiring certain requirements and high schools are requiring certain requirements, because I was a middle school teacher. He was like, middle school, we're going to require these requirements because we have to meet, our student body needs to meet what's needed for high school. The high school's students need to meet what's necessary for college. And I was like, man, I just feels like so short-sighted. Like we're only here to prepare people for what I think a lot of people are starting to realize is a flawed way of putting a person in a position of success and growth by, just everything's about going to college, right? And so, on the flip side, so when you get to the other side of it, and I've told this story before, but a friend of mine used the term unschooling. They said, she said, I unschool my kids. And I said, oh, you homeschool your kids? And she's like, no, I unschooled my kids. And I was like, what was that? And when she described it to me, it was like, that's it. That's the thing that I've been thinking about, because every time I'm in the classroom, I've said this in one of my videos, like I felt like I was tricking the kids into learning, and they loved me. My kid literally saw a kid in Costco the other day. I don't know if y'all have Costco.
Oh yeah, no,
but saw a kid in Costco the other day, and just a smile on her face, like, oh man, Mr. Williams, blah blah blah. I haven't taught her for like 3-4 years, but it's like, and it happens all the time. Like I've really built a strong connection and love with these young people, and to like, sorry, I went on a tangent. What was I talking about? I was saying,
I think tangents are what we have here.
Yeah, and we love it.
I'm sorry.
Really,
I was going to a point, man. It was good. It was a good one too.
The friend mentioning unschooling and
oh yeah, that's it. Okay, so my friend's mentioning unschooling, and I was like, that's it, because I built such a strong connection with the kids. That's why I said the Costco thing, because I built such a strong connection with the kids, and they loved it. They loved my class. They loved me. My parents would all the time say, oh my goodness, you're my kid's favorite teacher. All the teachers knew too, I was the favorite teacher, right? And it wasn't because, it's funny, similar to what the young lady said to me when I was eating with my family on our trip is because it was about respect. Even then, I knew it was about respect. I always gave the kids respect as if they were my peer, and I treated them as such. And so we built these connections, and I did get them to want to learn about history and want to learn about this and to do these things, but it was coerced, right? It was forced. And even with that love that they had for me and I had for them, there always came this point in the year where it was like, yeah, I don't want to do this. I'm not interested in this.
No.
I love you, Mr. Williams. I appreciate your class. I see what you're doing, but I don't want it. Like, I'm not, I rather do something else. And I never could figure out how academically I could get them past that. And I will talk to veteran teachers and they'll say, oh yeah, that's just it. It's like, why, wait, what? Why are we just giving up on that? Yes, kids are going to hit their wall. We talked about it as teachers all the time. Oh, the kids, they're hitting this wall. They hit their wall. They hit their wall. And then I'll say, okay, what can we do? How about we move the wall? Like, why is the wall even there? You know what I mean? Like,
don't push them into that wall.
Exactly. Either don't push them to the wall, like open a doorway, something, like give them a ladder to climb the wall.
When there's a wall, maybe you can change direction.
Yeah.
Exactly. And so when a friend of mine mentioned unschooling and she described it, it was like they removed the wall. They're not pushing them to a wall, and there's no wall there in the first place. They're just free to learn and to grow through life. And it's like, what's the best teacher is life. And when I think of myself, so I wasn't the best student, but I was a good student, if that makes sense. So I was an honor roll student, made great grades, but I was the jerk in the class. Like a lot of teachers didn't like me, always cracking jokes, interrupting class. I was just annoying. And I only did well academically because I'm really big on connections, right? So and I was speaking to one of my players recently, but if I knew the person who made the test, I would get at least a B, but probably an A on it, because I'm so good at connecting with people. So I know what you're looking for, right? Yeah. And I would just give people what they're looking for. I didn't know the information. I have no idea how to do the Pythagorean theorem or how to balance the matrices and stuff like. I don't know any of these things, but I learned it, and I know I got an A on those tests, right? And when I think back is, okay, what are the things that I do now as an adult, and why am I good at them? And every single one of those things, I know this isn't for everybody, but this is for me. All the things that I'm good at now, or what people would say, oh man, you're really good at that, blah, 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 blah. I learned through living. I didn't learn in a classroom. No. I didn't learn by a teacher teaching that to me. And when my friend mentioned unschooling and talked about, just the process of living and following your passions and your interests, and I was like, so that's it. That's the way, because I'm that guy who would lock himself in a room just to learn how to code so I could make the best website. Right. I'm that guy. Like, I've done that before. Right. It was MySpace at the time. I don't know if you guys even remember MySpace.
No, yeah.
Yeah, I was. Yeah.
I think so, yeah.
But, I would be in there just literally 2 days, just locked in, just trying to learn how to code, simple code, simple, HTML to make the best MySpace page, just because I'm competitive and I was interested in it, and I learned how to code off of that. I've never took a coding class my whole life. I've never taken, people don't believe this, I've never taken a video editing class or anything like that. Like, so the videos that you see, that's purely from a novice, that's just an unschooler. Like, I've just unschooled my way to doing this whole thing. And I was like, okay, if this has helped me become the person I am, that I think I'm an okay guy, but why don't I want that? I want to allow that for my children, to give them that kind of space, that kind of latitude, not put that wall in front of them and then force them to smash into it and be like, well, yeah, kids hit that wall. So, yeah.
So I'm getting really curious now. You're telling me about actually having, for the most part, a great time as a teacher, being passionate, having great relations with the children, probably loving the content.
Yeah.
Sorry. of what you're teaching. And okay, you have these problems about, maybe there's something with the structure, maybe you don't like the school as an institution, maybe when they hit the wall, do you want to push them, do you want to give up, do you want to let it be? But for the most part, you're passionate about it, so you're not unhappy as a teacher, as I hear it. And then I've heard this story about this woman who said, oh, we just unschool, we just live our life and do whatever we feel like doing. Is there a moment, like, is there this, I remember this day when I said, no, I'm not going to do this anymore? Or is it more of a process? What happened?
It was a process because it was a slippery slope. It started, I read this book, Most Likely to Succeed. I read it like in a day, right? And I'm not a reader. Most Likely to Succeed. It's about these innovative school programs and that are around the US, and they're basically talking about how automation is going to be coming, and in order to be successful for the world we're going to be living in 2030, people are going to need to be creative, going to need to be able to collaborate, things like that, right? It's not an unschooling book, by the way. It's more it's more on the side of, let's find more creative ways to educate our kids. That's the gist of the book. And so I started on the slippery slope probably like maybe 3 years before I actually stepped away. But the moment, it's funny because my wife and I were just talking about this moment, the singular moment when I was like, it actually was her more before me, which is funny because we, like I said, we collaborate, we communicate, right? And even though she's not in it, she felt it, right? And so we were on one of our walks and we were talking about our daughter, because our daughter at the time was in kindergarten and she really liked her teacher. But we were already seeing the tricks, the like, how do I get out of doing this assignment? And how do I, avoid this assignment? Or I don't need to do this. This isn't graded, blah, blah, blah. But it's something you like she likes math and numbers. And I was like, it's something you like. Like, why are you, you know what I mean? And we didn't like that. We saw, because my wife and we both saw, I was like, okay, I remember when I was playing these games just to navigate school, and we didn't like that. And this is what a teacher she likes, right? And we were talking and she was saying, because it was near the end of the year, he was like, so for first grade, what if she doesn't get a teacher she likes? And she's already playing these games with someone that she does like and respect, right? That likes and respects her. What if she doesn't get a teacher she likes? And I was like, oh man, because I think all of us, or at least most of us, has probably had that one teacher. It was like, it just wasn't it, for them. And yes. I've seen it go different directions, right? I've seen it where that kid goes to a place where now they're labeled as the bad kid, the trouble kid, and they get in trouble all the time. That almost was me. Like, I was that kid. My 5th grade teacher was that for me, where I was in what they call an in-school suspension all the time. And which is, like I told you, I was an AB student. Most of my schooling life, at least in the latter years. My early elementary, I struggled, but my latter years, I excelled really well. And so 5th grade, I had that teacher who just put me in this box that I was the bad kid, that I was the kid who caused all the disruptions, and labeled me. And I didn't realize it, but I was fighting against that label. I didn't even know it yet. And it just felt wrong. Like, wait, why am I getting in trouble all the time? And it could have put me in a bad place. And luckily, my mom, she basically stood up for me and stood up for my rights as a young child. Like, it's because I grew up in Georgia, Southeast Georgia. So we're talking country when, you picture overalls and, country accent. Yeah, that's where I'm from, right? And there might have been even a little bit of a race thing with it too, but I think it's more than that, to be honest. And I was like, okay, my daughter has a lot of my qualities, and what if she gets that teacher, right? Am I going to be able to be enough of what my mom was for me to help her through that? And my wife was like, wait, what? Why is this the argument? are you going to be enough of a parent? Why are we putting our kid in a position where they could go through this kind of trauma, period?
Yeah.
Right. And we're already seeing the signs. And she was like, no, I don't want her to be there. I don't want her to go to school. I don't want to be the luck of the draw if we get a good teacher or not every year.
Is she the oldest of your children?
Yeah, she's the oldest. So now she's
so
7, but at the time she was 5. And and she says, yeah, we're not doing this luck of the draw thing. And that was the moment when it was like, all right, we got to figure something out. And that was the moment when we shifted to say, okay, we're going to homeschool. We just didn't know how. I didn't know at that point, I didn't know it was going to be me. I thought it still was going to be some other way, but we was like, yeah, that's the easiest way to one path is to, a straight line, right? The path of least resistance. And that's the path that it just made more sense for our family. So, yeah.
Yeah.
I still didn't get the turning point, I think.
It was, should the daughter be sent to school?
Yeah, I get that.
Yeah.
I wanted more drama, I think.
Yeah.
Can you say it again? Say it again.
No, I just.
Oh, you wanted it more dramatic?
The moment is realizing you try to work around something. How can we handle this problem? And then you realize, why do we even create this problem? And that's when you decide to not school your children. Okay, I get it now.
Yeah.
So,
why? I guess it's not is sexy of a story, but
no, I think it's really, I like, and
I can add drama,
communicate
dramatic
around
music.
it. No, it's not, no, I'm sorry.
No, it's fine.
No, it's all good. It's all good. We had something similar, basically, didn't we? Like, so for us, it was our second child. Our first child is now in her 20s, and she was in school. She was in very alternative, very hippie style school. Make up your own program every Monday, evaluate it every Friday, all kids of all ages all together, teachers just facilitators. Very, very close to unschooling school, but still a school, still an institution. You still go there every morning and leave every afternoon. And so, but our second child, he just said, I think this school thing, it's probably not for me. Might be good for all the other kids, but I just feel he's very spiritual. And very close to himself, very honest, very peaceful, and very nice. He was not making any drama about it. He was just saying, nah,
it's not for me.
I really don't think it's for me. And he said it many times in the months up to school start. And in the end, he said, Mom and Dad, when are you going to listen when I'm telling you it's not for me? It's like you try to distract or talk about something else every time I say it. I'm telling you, this school thing is not for me. And it was actually really powerful. And yet we tried, because one of us, not me.
That's the there was nothing wrong with school. It didn't break me, kind of that,
So we tried for a while, and we our story, like our turning point, came with some drama, basically. So we tried for a while. He didn't like it. He didn't want it. And then, how you have this, I have the feeling that you also have this like curtains being pulled aside, the deschooling, you call it coming back to zero, like you take layers off. And we had a curtain pulling experience because a friend of mine died. And we went to the funeral, and she she died from the same disease, the same cancer that I survived. So it was like very, very confronting. And driving back from that funeral, it was like, maybe several curtains. And we said, what are we doing? What's this? Why don't we just live with passion the life that we have? So that's our initial story.
But what
we have to take care.
Yeah, I know. But I have a short one, which is
a pattern coming.
Yeah,
because we just last time we spoke to Laney Liberty, and it was the same thing. We said we have to talk to you again.
Yeah.
I think we have to talk
but
to
one
you again.
more thing before we end. And what you said reminded me with your daughter, the taking home the responsibility. The first time I met that, because of course you feel like parents you're responsible. But we had our son in a Waldorf institution when he was small, the kindergarten. And we were then trying to involve ourselves in the institution and stuff. We were in the, whatever it's called. But one day, the board is called. But one day the leader of the place, he said to me, well, if your kids are here more than 4 or 5 hours a day, it's more my kids than your kids. And she said it very nicely, and I was so provocated by it. And I was like, what? And it took, now, today, I agree with her, but I was so pissed because it really hurt me. But it's the best hours of the days where people give away with their children, where they're fresh, where they're out there. And today, what I'm thinking about unschooling and what it felt for me getting the kids home was this, okay, it was actually a fun thing. I remember with our oldest daughter who was in school, she asked me something and something academic, and my answer would sometimes be, go ask your teacher about that. So I was outsourcing, helping my daughter with her questions. And then when we started homeschooling and it turned into unschooling, I was like, they asked me stuff. I'm like, shit, we need to figure that out together.
Now
Because
we actually have to answer that question.
I cannot outsource
that
the,
one.
no.
You
And
could say, go ask your mom.
yeah, that also, I do that sometimes still.
Your mom probably knows that.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay, we could go on forever, man. I have like 8 questions on my notepad here that I didn't even ask. No, it's been great. It's just I think we have to do take 2 in a few months, just like with everybody else we talked to. It's like 1 hour.
I love that.
Yeah.
But for people who wants to hear more from you, where should they go?
All right, so my first spot is my YouTube, which is Black Dad. So if you go youtube.com/Black Dad, and then on Instagram, it's Black Dad Journey. On Twitter, same thing, @Black Dad Journey. And that's where you can reach me.
I would highly recommend it. I enjoyed your videos, and I think they are very, very honest and powerful. And I think congratulations on how fast you go on this journey. If it's only been 1 year, I mean, oh shit, that was a fly. I'm outdoors. I think you're doing great stuff with your personal journey and with sharing it. When we started out 10 plus years ago, there was not much info out there. So sharing it, I think, is very important. And I'm sure that also it reflects back on your own, you become more precise.
And also as a dad, growing up without a dad, which is a bigger problem in the States than in Denmark, where we are originally from. But to go out and show others that you can be a homemaker as a dad and be there fully, it makes me proud of you. Thank you, man.
Thank you. Yeah. I always want to just try to reflect honesty and truth in my journey. I try not to be preachy, because I always said, okay, 10 years from now, there's going to be another Jae Williams who's stepping into this journey, and maybe he'll come across a couple of my videos, and he or she come across some of my videos, and that'll help inspire them to make that leap. So that's kind of my purpose for this whole thing. So yeah, thank you. I appreciate that.
But to everybody listening and watching the video, go check out your wonderful videos, and thanks a lot for your time.
Thank you for listening. We hope you enjoyed today's episode, and if you liked them, then please share it with all your friends and family. We would also love it if you gave our podcast a review. Thanks. And if you want to support our podcast and work, then you can find us on patreon.com/The Conrad Family. We will continue to travel full time, and if you want to tag along, then please follow us on Facebook and Instagram @The Conrad Family. And you can also read more than 100 blog posts on our website, theconrad.family. Until next time, make a wonderful day. Thank you.